This is the Creality K1 Max 3D printer, and this video is not so much about the product itself. It's more about what you can do with a 3D printer regardless of the make or model of 3D printer. If you purchase this specific one, you're just going to get the 3D printer. You're not going to get any of the other stuff. In this case, this one, just the printer itself was around $700 to $800. Of course, you don't realize how much you're going to spend until you have to buy all the other things that are required, like tools, filament, and a filament dryer. But like I said, this video isn't so much about the 3D printer itself or the type of 3D printer. It's what you can do as a home DIYer. And in my case, it's used to replace a lot of things that in your home, if they broke, you would have to go buy a complete replacement. But if you do have a 3D printer, you can produce a lot of items very cheaply, very cost effective if you were to have a 3D printer on hand. If you're using the 3D printer to replace a lot of stuff, you can probably get a good return on your purchase. And I believe in my case, I've been able to use the 3D printer to replace a lot of things. In fact, I walk around the house looking for things that I can replace, repair, because in some cases you may just need to make a piece, but then in some cases you may have to make a bunch of pieces in order to make up the main item that you're trying to replace. So what I'm going to do next is show some of those things that have been made by the 3D printer. And I didn't say it, but the program software that is used to make things with the 3D printer is called Blender. Real quick before I get into the things that you can potentially make with a 3D printer, it is a good idea to have a precision measuring instrument. And this works pretty good. They're not very expensive. You can buy them at Harbor Freight or Amazon, and this is a whole lot better than a tape measure or a ruler as far as getting proper measurements. And if you don't use one of these, what will happen is you'll find out that you're remaking a lot of things over and over again because your measurements weren't correct. Here are some of the things that I have been able to reproduce. This piece right here, this portion is metal. This is a plastic, and this is for a futon. It actually slides on the side of the futon in order for the futon to go up and down in the slots that are in the wood. And at one point, before I had a 3D printer, I had actually made one out of wood, and this is oak wood. And then I used some CA glue all around it just to harden it up. And it actually worked pretty good. But then got the 3D printer, and this is what was created using the 3D printer. Not exactly alike, but this is an item that you wouldn't even notice or see. You can see that they're made up differently. The only difference between this one and this one is this has got the inside webbing. The webbing is in here. It's just covered here with a very thin layer. But this goes in here, and this is knurled right here. So that can be hammered in there carefully, and it will function just as well as this one. So there's that. This is what is left of what was my favorite screwdriver for a very long time. And unfortunately, it didn't make it, but it looks like there's some pieces missing. Anyways, it used to go like this, and the handle busted up, and so this needed to be reproduced. And so this is the original metal portion of the screwdriver, and then here is what was reproduced. And this is basically a clamshell. There's an upper and lower, basically two pieces, and it's super glued together. And then right now it's going through some sanding to make it a little more smoother than this, and it's completely covered in CA glue, which will give it like a really smooth coat similar to what this original handle is, but kind of hard to tell, but they are very similar. We have the mini blinds in our house with drawstrings, and these pieces, they basically, I'll show a picture of it, but these hold the drawstrings in place, and because they're in the window and getting hit by the sun all the time, they tend to break. So these were reproduced, but rather than making it longer, just cut it off, made it shorter, and then the screw will go right there to hold the drawstring in place. The next thing is, this was a measuring spoon, and you can see here it snapped right there. And then this is the replacement, and this replacement is actually 3 pieces. This piece goes all the way down into the handle, and then again, kind of like a clamshell, the top and the bottom snap in place, which should make this even stronger because the handle goes all the way down. This one ended right here, so it was easy to snap off, but it's not exactly the same. It just needs to be sanded down some, and then it'll be good. Of course, this is an item that comes into contact with food or food items, so in some cases you got to be careful with the type of filament you're using. There are many types of filament, but you do want to make sure you're using a food safe filament if you know your materials are going to come into contact with any food. These right here are keys for a keyboard, and you can see here's the bottom portion of the keyboard, and then there's the key itself, and this is what is produced for the keyboard. So you can make keys for your keyboard if you need to. You can either make an individual one or you can make a whole bunch of them. I have to show a picture of this again. We have 8 legs on our bed, and these caps right here, this portion comes into contact with the floor, and then there's like it's recessed, and then the recess goes up inside the leg of the bed, but for some reason these weren't very well made, and about 5 of 8 of them broke off inside the leg of the bed. So these needed to be remade, but instead of making them this way, what we did is we just made an overcap. So this goes over the entire leg rather than inside the leg. And because the bed's not being moved or picked up all the time, it doesn't make sense to make it the same way. These do fit snugly over the leg, so they will stay with the leg, but depending on the temperature, they could expand or contract. But these are made of a completely different filament. This is more flexible and stronger. This is kind of similar to like what you would find with like checkers or chess pieces. There are a total of 8 of these. There's only 7 here right now because one of them is already on one of the legs of the bed, but there's those. I did forget to mention this, but this is kind of an idea of what the inside of this handle on the screwdriver looks like. This was an initial run, and then you can see what the inside looks like. And in some cases, you got to be careful, and you can determine the thickness of the webbing inside. And if it were a screwdriver that you were going to make, the fact that you have to twist the screwdriver, you want to make sure that this webbing inside is strong, because one of the things that was quickly discovered is that twisting it, it does twist quite a bit. So you could end up just snapping it, trying to tighten something with this, even though this would typically be used for a much bigger screw. Yeah, like I said, this is an initial run, and the webbing was expanded more in the reproduction of it. That's what it would look like. This is another one, and this is where the material that you use really matters. You can't just use the same filament for everything. You could try, but you may have some issues if you use a filament that's not really strong enough or flexible enough. So in this case, we've had these binoculars for a very long time, and you can see this piece here for one of the cups broke off there, and then this is another one, and this piece right here is broke. But these new ones were made and actually fit really well. It's glossier. The binoculars themselves are like a matte or flat black, and these are like a gloss, and you can see they've got like a texture. You could sand that down if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it like it is, and came out pretty good. This was an early print, and when this prints, this portion right here has got a webbing inside of it that has to be pulled out, and the webbing's in there to make sure that the walls stay upright because it's still pretty hot at the time. So that's why the webbing is in there. And here's an example of using the correct filament, because originally I tried to use some very flexible filament, and the printer head was getting gunked up very quickly, and it was specifically this filament. And you can see how many times it basically, I mean, it got close sometimes, but once it got gunked up, it just really stopped printing. You can just see how many times this was done, and that was producing these. This is a very, very gummy type filament compared to this material and this material. It's much sturdier. So there you go. There are some items that you can reproduce at home, save yourself some money. I mean, trying to get these, and I can only imagine what the cost would be. I probably need to look it up and put it in the video. But finding these specifically for the bed, they may not even have them, or you won't be able to get them. This screwdriver, I could have bought a new one similar to it, but the fact that I can make it myself is much more rewarding. Could have bought new measuring spoons, could have bought new drawstring holders. These are probably like for one, it's probably $2-3, or a pack of so many is going to be like $8, $9, $10. Keyboard keys, in most cases you're not going to be able to just buy regular keyboard keys unless you're buying from a specialty store, computer specialty store. These pieces for the futon, the futon's probably, I don't know, 10 years old, so trying to get one of these pieces would be nearly impossible. The only way I would probably be able to get these eye cups would be to buy a new set of binoculars. Trying to find just these pieces would probably be near impossible. Like I said, this isn't so much about the printer itself. This is what you could do with a 3D printer, just DIYer at home who wants to replace things around the house and save some money. And of course, like I said in the beginning of the video, you may not see much return until you get quite a few things done with it. And then of course you need to have the ability to learn or already know how to use the software to make what you want to make. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, like, comment, and or share. Thanks again for watching.